As the National Mortgage Corporation of Malaysia, Cagamas was established by the government in 1986 to promote home ownership and contribute towards nation development. From an initial purchase of conventional housing loan of 100 million ringgit in 1987, Cagamas had, by end December 2018, cumulatively refinanced mortgages in the secondary market equivalent to 153 billion ringgit, or close to 2 million houses. This enabled millions of Malaysians to own their dream homes, partly resulting from the competitive long-term refinancing activities of Cagamas, facilitating financial institutions to expand their long-term portfolio of housing loans. We recognize that scale requires wholesale financing from capital market, and Cagamas is today one of the largest corporate bond and sukuk issuers in Malaysia. The session on connecting capital market and affordable housing will take you through the evolution of capital market instrument vis-a-vis tighter regulatory framework and relevant of affordable housing asset class. Our first home scheme and youth housing scheme have provided guarantees for home financing totaling 3.7 billion ringgit, enabling about 18,000 individuals to own their first home. These two schemes are focused on assisting first-time housing home buyers to purchase their home. Cagamas is also advocate for global collaboration. The inaugural meeting of International Secondary Mortgage Market Association, or in short, ISMA, was chaired by Cagamas in Kuala Lumpur yesterday. ISMA, launched under the auspices of the World Bank in 2018, is a global association formed to exchange ideas and share knowledge to promote housing market. 16 secondary mortgage market institutions are currently members of ISMA.
Pairing that with good urban planning, good trunk infrastructure, transport, and of course housing is the key to making urbanization sustainable.
It's very important to have better data, because without better data, it's difficult to really manage the housing sector well.
Innovative finance is something we will really have to spend time in the next 2 days.
Landmark thing where there's been a long demand for according to the infrastructure status.
We have increased land supply in urban areas together with through the land management.
Due to inflation rate as well as the now why secondary market.
May not say charity, but it's obligatory fees that Muslims have to pay. Bridge that gap, because a typical mortgage product, if we're able to actually bridge this gap,
in Malaysia mainly is the tawarruk product. The house can be owned by the person.
you give something so that it is permanent in nature and the return will be continuous.
Ladies and gentlemen, finally, for policymakers, our role is to continue pursuing greater coordination with the private sector to build a sustainable housing market. In Malaysia, for example, various initiatives have been announced to support this agenda, including the launch of Bank Negara Malaysia's Fund for Affordable Homes, the National Home Ownership Campaign, stamp duty exemptions, and provision of mortgage guarantees and rent-to-own schemes, among others. While we are seeing a gradual rebalancing of housing supply towards the more affordable segments in Malaysia, it is important that future supply is tailored to the needs of future demand. As such, moving forward, it will be critical for Malaysia to accelerate the establishment of an integrated housing database. The database will be important to provide timely information to help build an efficient housing market through greater transparency and lead to better planning by policymakers as well as developers. The newly established Single Authority for Affordable Housing can play a proactive and strategic role in managing affordable housing in Malaysia. Local authorities and developers can also work together to reduce the cost of building houses. Last but not least, there is a need to build a healthy rental market as well. Policymakers need to be clear that the drive for affordable housing is not necessarily equivalent to the drive for home ownership alone. Adequate housing is about access, which can be achieved not only through outright ownership, but also through the ability to rent a decent home at affordable prices. The overriding policy priority should not be ownership at all costs. We need to learn from the global financial crisis on the importance of a sustainable housing market. Policymakers need to protect the interests of the public and the stability of the economic and financial system. It is also in the interest of the public that they do not buy homes that they cannot afford and fall into financial hardship, which will have detrimental consequences to socio-economic stability.
Produce the land, therefore the development costs.
Our mission is also to create vibrant and sustainable towns and to promote the building of active and cohesive communities.
To change and shift the way you're thinking about home ownership and SDG goals, and how it also applies to the Asia-Pacific region.
The government puts up a standard, the minimum standard for the housing type, and then the price per region.
So that puts an enormous strain on two things, either the public social provided housing system or the private rental markets, and it's driving up prices and exacerbates the issue.
And to finish the end borrowers, we got many figures today from Asia about the needs, the trillion of dollars needed to find these gaps.
323 billion ringgit worth of bonds and sukuk, making us the largest issue of corporate debt in Malaysia.
Affordable housing, and especially for the low income or the middle income level, the household.
What kind of opportunities can we look at to access institutional investors, diversifying financing away from the banking system, trying to tap a new investor pool?
Go to pool the funding requirements of mortgage lenders and offer with a few investors, but there are always investors. Banks, for instance, are always there.
How it's so important for us to be meeting together today and speaking and sharing the way we are, because progress is incremental. No one can stand up here and tell you that they have a surefire solution to everything. You know, incremental progress is what it's all about, and collaboration. And then I think this other one is key, is you need technology to be in place so that you can use that technology to double down again.
Or 50% and 90% of total assets owned by households, by families.
In Japan, we use what we think of isolation, essentially provide air gap between the building to the ground.
And smart density is not only resilient, but it can also reduce the cost of housing enormously.
Our vision from BRAC is always to help the marginalized people with all their interventions which develop their lives.
A lot of possibilities. We just heard about possibilities around Port Moresby, what could be done there.
A lot of times, challenges comes when data is actually fragmented across different government segments.
Technology, analytics at the ground level, and perceived risk of this segment, which we are saying that we have demonstrated that unserved, unreached masses affordable housing.
From the investors around the world through this technology, and once they get the funds, they are done with the houses, they can easily transfer the title of the ownership to the banks from which the end buyer usually buys the homes.
So we've been providing debt and equity solutions. We've been going for 30 years, and we provide returns that make a profit and prove that this is commercially viable, but crucially at the bottom of the income pyramid.
We've set up to build a world-class affordable housing finance platform in China, and we deliberately avoided the tier 1 cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and we deliberately went into the southwest region.
The affordable housing, when it is handed back by the developer to the government, is then allotted by the government to the beneficiaries through an online process that they have adopted.
We are trying to do our bit to support that ecosystem for affordable housing sector. And through this, we are trying to see if we can identify and nurture 1 or 2 decent developers in every city who can potentially scale up to produce 5,000-10,000 homes every year.
We cannot talk about other issues very much because people don't have enough security.
It is the government's support for low-income people to support and leverage communities' effort to improve the condition of substandard home.
And partner with universities and professionals for internship opportunities for this professional mason work. And these are the things that can help you reach and complete your journey towards a disaster resilient.
We have to find solution. At the same time, the supply and the demand is quite clear. We have seen these dynamics, many sessions.
There are different models and there are different approaches that succeed in reaching pretty low-income people and informally employed people. And that's a big thing in many of the markets in this region that still needs to be addressed.
I do hope that you have benefited from this conference and will take home with you some knowledge, information, and experiences which we can build on to further the agenda of affordable housing in our respective countries.